So hello, firstly welcome to the channel. My name is Joel Nelson and I'm an arthritis and psoriasis patient advocate from Norfolk in the UK. I was first diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, or JIA, around the age of 12, with onset when I was 10 years old, just for my 11th birthday. In my 20s, and after a stressful life event, a widespread psoriasis outbreak confirmed that my JIA was of a psoriatic nature, so psoriatic associated JIA, and now it's essentially psoriatic arthritis. But because I was a child when I was diagnosed, I keep the JIA element, the juvenile element, throughout life. Basically, what brought me to advocacy, which is what we do here on the channel. We create awareness videos, we share people's stories, we emphasize the power of the patient voice, patient experience, and trying to basically do a tide shift to make sure that patients are involved in all the decision making, and every step of the journey, so that they have that shared sense of ownership and shared decision making, but also can help shape what matters to them in the arthritis, autoimmune, chronic illness space. And essentially my route to here today was not sort of one of traditional advocates. I've never been typically outspoken, and in fact I went most of my life trying to hide my health challenges, as a sort of safety net, I suppose, having been in a wheelchair as a child, things like that. When you do get well, you then want to sort of bury them and not be judged on them. And I basically didn't want to have the word considering at the end of every sentence whenever I achieved anything, because people were factoring in my disability. I just wanted to be judged on me. So when I got the opportunity and got my first real remission at 18 and went off to university, I just buried it, and didn't mention it. And I had bad days, of course I had bad days, and I had flares and everything else. I just closed the door, and suffered in silence, and didn't share that with anyone. But then fast forward to 2019, and with the arrival of my son, my first child, and everything changed. So basically I'd spent 2 years planning to start a family, with my wife and my medical team, and getting all those reassurances that people with long-term health conditions need before making those big life decisions. And I'd got access to drugs called biologics, which were absolute game changers for me. And I was basically playing rugby, I was doing half marathon running events, I was doing 100-mile cycling events, and I was kind of like this poster of what you could be with well-managed arthritis, and on the right drugs for you, and with the right exercise. And I'd managed to break that cycle, and I just kept riding that wave. And I was super fit and healthy, so it seemed like the best time, once I got all those reassurances from my doctors, for us to start a family and everything else. Unfortunately, at the same time, my son arrived in January 2019, and at the same time, here in the UK, or in England, in the NHS, there was a program to switch people over from biologics to biosimilars. It was obviously a cost-saving measure, but I myself work in NHS, and I thought if that gives more people access to these drugs that changed my life so dramatically, then it felt like the right thing to do. And I was given loads of reassurances that I could switch back and everything else, and therefore I was happy to to say yes to that. However, within like 6 months, I was in agony. I was trying to navigate for a baby on crutches. I hadn't used crutches in decades. I was suddenly faced with this issue of, like, how do you carry a newborn up the stairs when both your arms are occupied? How do you change nappies when, again, both your arms are occupied and you can't get back up off the floor? How do you play with a baby once they get to like a year old and they're more mobile when dad is no longer mobile? And these are all things that I never had to consider, because my life when I started a family was totally different. I was playing rugby, I was running, I was fit, I was healthy, I had no pain, and so essentially my world turned upside down. And I know that stress was a part of that. It wasn't just the medication switch. Stress, obviously, having a new baby, hard. Anyone that's started a family will know that, and sleepless nights and the worry and everything else. So that obviously triggers stress. Is a huge trigger on my arthritis and my psoriasis. But it obviously wasn't helped by the timing of that drug change when everything was working so well for me. I'd understand it if I wasn't having amazing results, but I was. So basically, I found myself in this position where I had no support network and I had no plan B, and I was suddenly an adult with arthritis, and I didn't know that transition from being a kid where my parents sorted out everything and I had people to advocate for me, and all of a sudden I was a 30-something-year-old man on crutches with a baby, and I didn't even know how to get an appointment, let alone all the support I used to have as a child with arthritis, the physio, the hydrotherapy, the access to pain support, the access to, you know, social stuff, all these things that you just took for granted as a kid. You have several years without arthritis, and then all of a sudden, bang, you've got to try and find your way back in the front door. And it kind of broke everything, and it ruined my career, and it's pushed my wife and I's relationship to limit with the stress of all of that. We finally got the green light for me to go back onto my original treatment. 11 months. We were told we could switch straight back. 11 months. We finally got that decision, and but the damage was done. I was left in constant pain, and I've been told it's possibly permanent. So the disease itself has cleared up. I still get issues and flares and rashes and things like that, but I don't. All the areas where I experienced pain during those 11 months still hurt every single day and night, and there's nothing we can do about it. The pain pathways, the neurological pain pathways that were created during that flare have just stayed open. So even though the disease is gone, I still experience that pain, and that I couldn't wrap my head around that. I couldn't understand that, and I had no support circle and social circle, and I had no friends anymore because all my friends played sport, and that's what we did together, or music, and these things I suddenly couldn't do anymore. And I was just there and left on my own for months, and I didn't know what to do about that. I didn't know how to advocate for myself. I'd never needed a voice, and essentially, after 9 months of going through all of that in 2019, you know, my wife, my GP, lots of people were saying you need to find an outlet. So I started writing. I used to write when I was a child. I used to write when I was in hospital as a child. I've always been quite good at poetry and things like that. And I started writing as a way of sort of dealing with this spiral and mental health situation and depression. And I found my voice. And I didn't know I had a voice. I knew I was good with words, but I didn't know I could capture people's attention with my story and my situation and get people to sit up and take notice and represent other people. And essentially I ended up stopped writing for myself and advocating for other people, and that's what brings us here today. And it's a terrifying thought for me being on YouTube because it's not natural. My natural skills isn't in talking to cameras. It's, you know, writing, and my career is in something completely different. But I now find myself here, and I feel like I have a responsibility now that I've found these skills and I've had people sit up and take note, that I have a responsibility to share the issues on behalf of everyone else in the community as well. So now I no longer just advocate for me and my personal situation. I advocate for a whole range of people and the issues, particularly with what the pandemic brought about. So yeah, essentially that's here, and that's me, and that's how we got here, and that's how come I'm on YouTube. So what you can expect here is awareness videos, interviews with other patients, lots of messaging about the importance of the patient voice, stuff I'm going to be involved in, projects and focus groups, and the things I do over on Twitch and my podcast, and all these things I do to try and get across that there's people like me out there who didn't know where to turn to and still don't know where to turn to, and people are waiting too long for diagnoses, and they can't get back in the door if they have 5 years remission, and they're suddenly behind people that have just been diagnosed even though they've lived with this thing their whole life, and we have to keep living with it our entire lives. And pain is not a fun environment to live in, and there is no magic bullet for me, and there's lots of other people out there where there is no magic bullet. And the fact that we're not advertising specialist pain management services to patients, letting them know what the gates they have to go through to get the support they want to get. You see things online about biologics and this drug and that drug, but there's nothing on a page that tells a newly diagnosed patient or an old hat like me who's been living with it for most of my life how you get from A to B, how you get the support you need. And that's why I'm here today. So if anything I have said, even if you've got if you made it this far and you've got no connection or experience or association with arthritis, autoimmune chronic illnesses, firstly, thank you for listening. That's half the battle. But secondly, if anything I said has resonated, if any of what I'm trying to do feels like it will help you in your situation or shine a light on it or give you a voice, then please just hit that subscribe button, like a couple of videos, comment on something that you think is valuable to you, anything that tells me that out there someone's getting something from it, and also tells the internet bots that what we're doing here is important. And hopefully we can not only just reach those people that are in my position in 2019 that desperately need support and representation and to not feel like they're alone all the time, but also if you're watching this and you've got no experience of these conditions, because that is how we change the stigma. You know, we don't change the stigma by being in an echo chamber surrounded by other patients and talking about our stories. We have to get other people to tune in, sit up and take notice. So that's why I'm here on YouTube. Thank you for listening to my passionate plea. That's why I advocate. And if you've liked anything that I've said, then yeah, hit that subscribe button, and let's help other people who have been in that sort of dark place that I have. Thank you very much for watching.